thought I'd make a quick redo of the video before if you're actually watching these and like trying to learn something from them, because it had everything about the book when I got it yesterday, then the video didn't post. So it was Overcoming Binge Eating, second edition, by Dr. Fairburn, and I just got it on Amazon. It took 2 days. And he's a world-renowned doctor in this stuff. He's worked with it for a long time. It's a very studied program, I guess. So because things like binge eating weren't studied for very long, kind of came big in the 80s with this one. Some of the information's new and still being learned. This book came out in 2013 as the second edition. And it seems like some of the information was updated, but it's still a little dated, and some of the ways they talk. For instance, I'll tell you guys more about like using the BMI index. I haven't heard about the BMI index for a long time. And the disproportionate amount of time it only talks about women, when I guarantee there's probably men facing these issues too, but they might not be ready to talk about it. And it talks about bulimia, it talks about anorexia, and it talks about binge eating disorder. And then there's all these atypical ones that have a lot less people who just don't fit in one box. It gives you definitions of what it calls a binge eating disorder versus a binge eating problem. And I could say, reading them, sometimes I have more of a binge eating problem, but in recent months, being home so much, I have a binge eating disorder from being home so much. So characteristics of binge eating is like your feelings, the speed you eat, the agitation you feel, how mad you get, loss of control, how secretive you are about it, or altered consciousness, like you're in a trance during a binge. And that was the big one that I didn't like because I don't like being out of control in any way in my body. It talks about how bad it is to be dieting, and dieting really does feed into a lot of binge eating. It also points out that even if you fix your binge eating disorder, you may not lose a lot of weight, and you may not gain weight if you're anorexic and that's your goal. This is just about fixing the eating problems and teaching you how to eat healthier, and hopefully with that your body can adjust to better healthy sizes. There are 3 ways to use the book. You can use it as just a self-help book, or you can use it with your therapist and they can do cognitive behavioral therapy with you while using this book. Or there's like an online resource you can use, which I've checked out a little bit today, just to get some of the worksheets off of and stuff. Okay, but the triggers were the big ones, and it made me realize that even though sometimes when I read it, I'm like, maybe I just have a problem, maybe I don't need this much intervention, but I do. Because unpleasant emotions, not quite depression, but unpleasant emotions make me binge eat. Breaking dietary rules, often if I know I've already broken one of my rules that I've made for myself, I'll binge eat. Drinking alcohol is one that's not really a big one for me. Unstructured time, it's COVID, and I'm trying to keep my time structured, but I can literally do whatever I want. I'm home alone all day. Which leads to the next one, being alone. I'm alone all day. That's not normal for people who need to socialize. Feeling fat, which is 99% of the women I know. Gaining weight. Gaining weight for years. Premenstrual tension, the days leading up to your period, you feel you want snacks because of hormones, which is something else to check with your doctor, and something my doctor wants to check when COVID slows down a little bit, is like making sure my hormones aren't just out of whack. It talks about, it does talk a lot about mixed eating disorders, night eating syndromes, different things like that, but I still feel most related to this binge eating disorder, and it fits so well with my issues. But when it shows you the most dramatic people on the binge eating disorder scales, and you're like, well, that's not me. I'm not that out of control, or I'm not doing that. Kind of makes you feel like, oh, it's not that bad. Then I remember how bad I felt before I went to the doctor. So bulimia came out in the 1970s. Not came out, it was obviously around before that, probably for hundreds of years, but people started to track it, doctors started to study it in the 1970s. And it wasn't actually until 1980s there was a small notice about binge eating. And they really used the magazine Cosmopolitan, which I think is funny, to like get the word out about this. There's community and psychological and social aspects that lead to all this. So it's not just you, it's not just your brain. There's so many other aspects at play. I really do like it though. It's an easy read, very easy read. It talks about the feeling fat, your shape avoidance, where you don't want to look at yourself in the mirror, or over checking how you look in the mirror, over checking your weight, making comparison to other people. Yeah, it talks about how your weight fluctuates, how everything's like the subject of fashion comes up quite a lot, and why you shouldn't follow just what's fashionable at the time, all the reasons you should try and get healthy, which for me are things, my family has diabetes in it, there's a long line of people who ended up with cancers, there's heart conditions, so I want to get healthy for those reasons. And yeah, so it's a pretty good book and easy to read if you want somewhere to start. It's nice that it's has so much self-help in it, and once you start the steps you can try and do it on your own, and some people have been successful doing that. According to the book itself, they've been successful, and you can cure this. It's not like an addiction where for the rest of your life you have to battle not to think and not to go into alcohol or drugs. You can actually just cure this and change the way you eat and the way everything works, but you have to work hard at it and dedicate yourself to it and not let any self-doubt stop you. So yeah, that's more about the book from the video you guys missed yesterday.